The Mafia boss pushed through the revolving glass door of his Manhattan penthouse on New Year's Day, silent, unannounced. His black leather coat caught the lobby light as the elevator doors whispered shut behind him. Kwang Austin moved like smoke through marble hallways, the kind of man whose footsteps other men feared. But tonight, he wanted peace. Just 1 hour before the chaos of midnight celebrations swallowed the city whole. The penthouse door opened without resistance. He stepped inside. Then everything exploded. A body slammed into him from the left. Red rubber gloves clamped over his mouth before he could breathe. His spine hit the wall. Hard. A woman's voice cracked near his ear, trembling with raw terror. "Don't move. Don't breathe. Please, Mr. Austin." Jasmine, his maid. The woman whose name he barely remembered. She dragged him sideways into the narrow service closet, her grip iron-tight on his wrist. The door stayed cracked just 2 inches, just enough to see through. And what Kwang saw through that gap shattered every wall he'd ever built. His wife Kara stepped into the living room wearing silk and secrets. His younger brother Mock followed, shirtless, hands possessive on her waist. They were laughing. Mock's voice carried through the penthouse like poison wrapped in velvet. "How much longer do we have to wait?" Kara turned in his arms, tracing a finger along his jawline. Her smile was soft, intimate. The kind of smile Kwang hadn't seen on her face in years. "Relax, baby," she murmured. "I tripled the arsenic this morning in his green juice. His kidneys are shutting down. The doctor said his liver enzymes are through the roof." She kissed Mock's neck. "By midnight tonight, the king falls, and we inherit everything." Mock pulled her closer. "You're sure he didn't suspect anything?" "He suspects nothing," Kara said, laughing. "He's too busy playing God with his little empire to notice his own body failing. He thinks he's invincible." They kissed. Deep, slow, possessive. In the closet, Kwang's legs nearly buckled. Every dizzy spell. Every morning he couldn't stand without gripping the counter. Every night he blamed exhaustion, blamed stress, blamed the weight of ruling New York's underworld. It all crystallized into one horrifying truth. His own blood was killing him. Jasmine's hand tightened on his wrist, her eyes locked onto his in the darkness, wide, terrified, but steady. She pressed one gloved finger to her lips. "Stay quiet. Stay alive." Outside, Kara's voice drifted closer to where they hid. "You know what bothers me? Jasmine's been watching me lately. She notices too much." Mock's reply was ice. "After tonight, it won't matter. We'll send her back to whatever ghetto she crawled out of." "Or," Kara said, voice light as air, "we make sure she can't talk at all." In that moment, Kwang Austin, the man who controlled everything from the docks to the Diamond District, realized 3 things. He was supposed to die tonight. His empire was a lie. And the only person fighting to keep him breathing was the woman he'd treated like furniture for 2 years. Yasmin slowly reached into her uniform pocket, pulling out a small glass vial. She held it up in the sliver of light, white crystalline residue inside. Her lips moved, forming words without sound. "I know what they did." If you want to see how a man who ruled with fear learns what courage really looks like, if you need to know whether Kwang survives this night, then you need to subscribe right now, because what happens in the next 60 seconds will change everything. Hit that subscribe button. This story gets darker before it gets light. Jasmine kept Kwang frozen in the darkness, her breath shallow and controlled. She brought the vial closer to his face, tilting it so the pale residue caught what little light filtered through the crack. Her whisper was so quiet it barely registered above the sound of his own hammering heart. "I've been cleaning your kitchen for 2 years, Mr. Austin." Her voice carried no accusation, just facts laid bare. 3 months ago, Mrs. Estes started making your green juice herself, every morning. She sent me away from the kitchen during prep. Said she wanted privacy. Jasmine's jaw tightened, but I watched through the pantry mirror. She produced a second vial from another pocket, this one sealed with tape. The residue inside was identical. I collected this from the sink drain, she continued. Twice. Whatever she was washing down, she didn't wash thoroughly enough. Kwang stared at the vials, his mind racing through months of mornings. Kara bringing him that glass of thick green liquid, her smile bright and loving. Her insistence that he drink it all. It's good for you, baby. Keeps you strong. He'd trusted her. Believed her concern was real. Outside the closet, Kara's laughter drifted through the penthouse. She was saying something about needing to pick up dry cleaning before the New Year's party. Her voice was light, casual, as though she hadn't just confessed to murder. Mok responded with something in Korean that Kwang couldn't quite catch. Then his brother's voice rose slightly. Jasmine's been acting strange lately, watching too much. Have you noticed? Kara's footsteps moved closer to where they hid. Kwang felt Jasmine's entire body go rigid. After tonight, it won't matter, Mok said, his tone dismissive. We'll send her back to wherever she came from. Give her severance. Make it clean. Or, Kara added, and there was something sharp in her voice now, something that made Kwang's blood run cold. We make sure she can't talk at all. Loose ends are dangerous, especially ones that clean kitchens. Jasmine's grip on Kwang's wrist tightened until her fingers dug into his skin, but her face remained calm, her eyes never leaving his. She mouthed one word, wait. Kara and Mok's voices faded as they moved toward the bedroom. A door closed. The penthouse fell into an eerie quiet punctuated only by distant traffic and the hum of the building's ventilation. Jasmine finally released Kwang's mouth. He gasped softly, sucking in air that tasted like dust and cleaning solution. I heard them 2 weeks ago, Jasmine whispered, her voice barely audible. I was replacing linens in the guest room. They didn't know I was there. Mrs. Estes told your brother she loves him, she said. Yasmin hesitated, choosing her words carefully. She said you're a monster who treats people like property. She said the world would be better when you're gone. Kwang wanted to explode from the closet, wanted to kick down doors and demand answers and make them pay for what they'd done. But the moment he tried to move, his vision swam. The closet walls tilted at impossible angles. Weakness flooded through his legs like water through a broken dam. The poison. It was working even now. Jasmine caught his elbow before he could fall. Her other hand pressed against his chest, steadying him with surprising strength. We have to leave now, she said, urgency cutting through her careful whisper. If they see you, if they know you heard them, they'll finish it right here. No waiting until midnight. No mercy. Kwang's breath came in short, painful gasps. His body felt like it belonged to someone else, something heavy and unreliable. He looked at Jasmine, really looked at her for perhaps the first time since she'd started working for him. Her face was round and open, her dark eyes sharp with intelligence he'd never bothered to notice. She wore the same crisp black and white uniform she always did, but there was steel beneath the fabric, determination in every line of her body. Why? He managed to ask. Why are you helping me? Yasmin's expression didn't change. Because I can, she said simply. Now move. We have maybe 5 minutes before they check on you. She eased the closet door open wider, scanning the penthouse with the careful attention of someone who'd spent years learning to be invisible. When she was satisfied, she pulled Kwang forward. His legs barely cooperated. Each step felt like wading through concrete. But Jasmine was there, her arm around his waist, taking more of his weight than should have been possible for someone her size. She guided him toward the service corridors, hallways Kwang had never used, had never even thought about. The pathways his staff used to move through his home without disturbing him. The realization hit him like a physical blow. He'd built an empire on knowing every detail, controlling every variable. But he'd never known his own home. Not really. He'd lived in it like a king in a castle, blind to the machinery that kept it running. There's a staff elevator, Yasmin whispered as they rounded a corner. It goes straight to the parking garage. No cameras in the service corridors. You never wanted them. Said you didn't need to watch the help. The words should have stung. They didn't. Because Kwang was beginning to understand just how blind he'd been. They reached the elevator. Yasmin hit the button with her elbow, still supporting most of Kwang's weight. The doors opened immediately. Small mercies in a night of horrors. As they descended, Kwang caught his reflection in the elevator's polished metal walls. He looked like a ghost, skin pale and waxy, eyes sunken, the face of a man who'd been dying for months and never noticed. "How long?" he asked. "How long have they been poisoning me?" Jasmine's jaw tightened. 3 months that I know of. Maybe longer. 3 months. 90 days of slow death, and he'd blamed everything but the truth. The elevator doors opened onto the parking garage. The smell hit him first. Gasoline, exhaust, the particular mustiness of underground spaces. Luxury vehicles gleamed under fluorescent lights. His Mercedes, his Porsche, his Bentley. Monuments to wealth that suddenly felt meaningless. Yasmin's ancient Honda sat in the corner, dented and humble among the steel and chrome. She guided him toward it with single-minded focus. "We can't take your car," she said, anticipating his protest. "They're tracking everything you own. Your vehicles, your phones, probably even your clothes. We take my car. We disappear where they'd never think to look." Kwang wanted to argue. Wanted to insist on his armored Mercedes with bulletproof glass and a reinforced chassis, but Yasmin was already opening the Honda's passenger door, and his body was giving up the fight. He collapsed into the seat. The upholstery was worn, but clean. A rosary hung from the rearview mirror. The whole car smelled like vanilla and determination. Yasmin shut his door and hurried around to the driver's side. The engine coughed twice before catching. She threw the car into reverse and navigated toward the exit with the practiced ease of someone who'd made this trip hundreds of times. As they approached the garage gate, Kwang saw movement on the security monitor. Kara, appearing on the penthouse balcony far above, phone pressed to her ear. Even from this distance, he could see her scanning the street below, looking for him. Jasmine saw it too. Her hands tightened on the steering wheel, but her foot stayed steady on the gas. The gate rolled open. They drove through into the cold New Year's night. Kwang expected her to head toward his properties, the safe houses, the businesses, the places where his organization could protect him. Instead, she turned the opposite direction, navigating through back alleys and side streets with the confidence of someone who knew how to disappear in plain sight. "Where are we going?" Kwang asked. "Somewhere safe," Jasmine replied. "Somewhere they'd never think to look for the great Kwang Austin." They drove in silence for 10 minutes, the city lights blurring past the windows. Kwang tried to focus, tried to think strategically about his next move, but exhaustion pulled at him like an undertow. Jasmine pulled into a construction site, empty and dark except for the glow of nearby streetlights. She killed the engine and turned to face him. "Your watch," she said. "Your rings, your phone, everything metal, everything traceable. Give them to me." Kwang's hand moved instinctively to his wrist. The watch had been his father's, a Patek Philippe, worn and scratched from decades of use. The only thing he'd kept when he took over the organization, the only piece of his father he had left. "They'll track you through it," Yasmin said, her voice softer now. "I'm sorry, but you have to choose, your memories or your life." Kwang looked at the watch, at the rings on his fingers, symbols of power, of connection, of identity. Then he looked at Yasmin's face, at the woman who was risking everything to save a man who'd never learned her last name. Slowly, he removed the watch, the rings, his encrypted phone that only his inner circle knew about. He placed them in Yasmin's outstretched palm. She got out of the car and walked to where a concrete mixer stood, its drum still rotating with the day's leftover mix. Without ceremony, she dropped everything into the churning concrete. Kwang watched his past disappear into gray sludge. Watched his father's watch vanish. Watched the symbols of his power get swallowed whole. They'll think you're here, Yasmin said as she returned to the car. When they track the signal, they'll find this construction site. That buys us time. She started the engine again, and they drove deeper into Brooklyn, leaving behind everything Kwang Austin had been. Leaving behind the king, searching for the man underneath. Jasmine navigated through streets Kwang had never visited, despite technically owning them. His organization controlled these blocks, collected protection money from the bodegas, ran numbers out of the corner stores, moved product through the alleys. But Kwang Austin had never set foot here. Kings didn't visit their territories. They sent lieutenants. They stayed in penthouses and looked down at maps. Now he was here, slumped in the passenger seat of a Honda with a cracked dashboard, watching real life scroll past his window. Kids played basketball under streetlights despite the cold. Music thumped from open apartment windows. A group of women stood outside a laundromat, laughing and passing around a cigarette. They glanced at the Honda as it passed, but didn't give it a second look. Just another beat-up car in a neighborhood full of them, invisible. Kwang finally understood the power of being invisible. "How long have you been watching?" he asked, breaking the silence. Jasmine kept her eyes on the road. "Long enough to know the difference between loyalty and lies." "What does that mean?" She sighed, her breath fogging slightly in the cold car. The heater worked, but barely. "Mr. Austin, I've served your family for 2 years. I've cleaned your offices. I've heard names and seen faces. I know who comes and goes." Kwang waited. "Taeyang came to the penthouse last week," Jasmine said quietly. "You were gone. Meeting with someone in Queens, I think. He met with your brother in the study. They spoke in Korean, but I saw money exchange hands." The words hit Kwang like a physical blow. Taeyang, his second in command, his most trusted lieutenant. The man who'd stood beside him for 8 years, who'd taken a bullet for him in a warehouse shootout 4 years ago. Bought. "You're sure?" Kwang's voice came out hoarse. "I'm sure." Jasmine's tone held no doubt. "I didn't understand what it meant at the time, but then I started seeing other things. Your wife making those juices, your brother spending more time at the penthouse. The way they looked at each other when they thought no one was watching." She paused. "I'm a maid, Mr. Austin. People don't see me. That's my advantage. I see everything." Kwang closed his eyes. His entire inner circle was compromised. Kara, Mok, Taeyang. How many others had they bought or threatened into compliance? How deep did the rot go? "My men," he started to say, "the organization is theirs now," Yasmin finished. "Or will be by morning, once they confirm you're missing. They've been positioning themselves for months. This wasn't spontaneous. This was a takeover." The casual efficiency in her voice made it worse. She'd watched his empire being stolen from underneath him, and he'd noticed nothing. Too busy building walls. Too busy being untouchable. Jasmine pulled into a narrow alley behind a worn apartment building. Laundry hung between fire escapes despite the cold. Music drifted from open windows, something with a heavy beat and lyrics in Spanish. The building was 4 stories of weathered brick and barred windows. "This is where I actually live," Jasmine said quietly. "Not the address in your files." Kwang looked at her. "What?" "The address I gave your HR department is my aunt's place in Crown Heights. Nicer neighborhood. Better impression." She killed the engine. "But I live here. Rent's cheaper. And no one from your world would ever think to look for you in Brownsville." She got out and came around to his side, opening the door. Kwang tried to stand on his own. His legs had other ideas. The poison had sunk deeper while they drove, turning his muscles to water. Jasmine caught him, her arms surprisingly strong under his weight. "Lean on me," she said. Not a request. They moved through the alley, past a dumpster that smelled like old food and desperation. Past a group of teenagers who eyed them but didn't interfere. Jasmine nodded at them. A greeting, an acknowledgement. They nodded back. She knew these people. was part of this world in a way Kwang had never been part of anything except violence and power. The building's back entrance opened with a key. They climbed 2 flights of stairs, Kwang's breathing getting harsher with each step. By the time they reached Yasmin's door, his vision was swimming again. The apartment was a single room. One room for everything. Sleeping, cooking, living. A fold-out couch sat against one wall. A kitchenette occupied a corner, clean but sparse. Bars covered the windows. A small artificial tree sat on an upturned milk crate, decorated with handmade ornaments, paper snowflakes, dried orange slices, a few strands of tinsel. Someone had tried to make this feel like home with almost nothing. Photos covered one wall. Yasmin with an older woman who shared her round face and careful eyes. Yasmin in a graduation gown, her smile bright with hope. A young man in military dress uniform, his expression serious and proud. "My brother," Jasmine said, following Kwang's gaze. "Elvis. He died 4 years ago." Before Kwang could respond, the room tilted violently. Nausea overwhelmed him. He doubled over, and Yasmin was there with a plastic basin catching him as his body expelled what little was in his stomach. When the retching finally stopped, she brought him water and a cold cloth. Her movements were efficient, practiced. She'd done this before for someone. "The arsenic attacks your organs," she said gently, wiping his face. "It's been building for months in your system. Your kidneys are probably struggling. Your liver too. That's why you're so weak." Kwang took the water with shaking hands. His entire body felt like it was betraying him. The man who'd built an empire through force and fear couldn't even stand without help. "Why are you doing this?" he asked again, because he needed to understand. Jasmine sat across from him on a small folding chair. She looked at the photo of her brother on the wall, and something painful crossed her face. "Elvis died 4 years ago," she began, her voice steady but soft. "He worked for a man in Detroit. A man like you. Ran operations, managed territory, did what needed doing." She paused. "Until he found out his boss was trafficking kids. Moving them through Detroit to other cities. Using them." Kwang felt something cold settle in his stomach. "Elvis tried to stop it," Jasmine continued. "Went to the police first, but the police were paid off, so he went to the FBI, started gathering evidence, wearing a wire, building a case." Her hands folded in her lap. "They found out. Made it look like an overdose. Heroin. Left his body in an alley." "I'm sorry," Kwang said, and meant it. "I came to New York after the funeral," Jasmine said. "Needed money to survive. Took the job with your family because it paid better than anything else I could find. I told myself I'd keep my head down. Just work. Just survive." She met his eyes. "But then I saw what your wife was doing. Saw the pattern. The lies. The slow death." Her voice hardened slightly. "And I thought, not again. I won't watch someone die when I could have stopped it, even if that someone built an empire on fear." The accusation hung in the air between them. "You think I'm a monster," Kwang said. "I think you're a man who forgot other people are human," Jasmine replied. "But you're not dead yet. That means you can change. That means you get a choice Elvis never got." Before Kwang could respond, a harsh knock hit the door. 3 sharp raps. A male voice barked through the wood. "Yasmin, open up, now." Jasmine's entire body went rigid. She moved to the window and lifted the curtain with one finger, peering down at the street below. Then she turned to Kwang, her face drained of color. "They found us." Jasmine moved with the swift precision of someone who'd planned for this exact moment. She crossed to the window first, lifting the curtain just enough to see down to the street. 2 men in dark coats stood near the building entrance. Even from 2 floors up, Kwang recognized their posture, the way they held themselves, the casual authority of men who worked for someone powerful. His men. Except they weren't his anymore. "Stay down," Jasmine whispered. though Kwang couldn't have stood if he wanted to. The nausea was getting worse, waves of it rolling through his body with increasing frequency. His skin felt simultaneously hot and cold, sweat soaking through his shirt. The knock came again. Harder this time, more insistent. Jasmine looked at Kwang, then at the door, calculating. Her jaw set with determination. Stay here. Don't make a sound. Yasmin, trust me. She didn't wait for his answer. She straightened her uniform, smoothed her hair, and walked to the door. But she didn't remove the chain. She opened it just wide enough to see out, her body blocking the view into the apartment. Can I help you? Her voice was perfectly calm, perfectly ordinary, like she hadn't just pulled a mafia boss from his own execution. Through the crack, Kwang could see a slice of the man outside. Sunu, one of Mok's personal security team. A Korean man in his 30s with a scar running through his left eyebrow. He'd always smiled too much. He was smiling now. Yasmin, right? Sunu's voice was friendly, almost warm. Sorry to bother you so late. Mr. Mok asked me to check on you. Make sure you got home safely. That's kind of him, Jasmine replied without missing a beat. I'm fine. Just got in from my shift. Your shift ended 6 hours ago. Sunu's smile didn't waver, but something cold entered his voice. Your car was seen leaving the penthouse garage at 6:47 p.m. Security footage shows you had a passenger. Yasmin's shoulders stayed relaxed. You must be mistaken. I take the subway to work. Always have. You can check my Metro card if you want. A pause. Kwang could hear Sunu shifting his weight, could almost feel the man recalculating. Ms. Lowe, Mr. Austin is very sick. His family is worried about him. If you know where he is, if you're hiding him, you're actually making things worse. He needs medical attention. I don't know where Mr. Austin is, Yasmin said, and her voice carried just the right amount of concern. Is he missing? Should I be worried? We're handling it. Sunu leaned closer to the gap in the door. But if you do hear from him, or if you remember anything unusual from today, you'll call us, won't you? Mr. Mok would be very grateful. Behind Yasmin, pressed against the wall where he couldn't be seen, Kwang spotted his own reflection in the small mirror hanging by the door. He barely recognized himself. The man in the mirror looked weak, sick, defeated. Nothing like the image he'd cultivated for years. But he also saw Yasmin's reflection. Saw her standing firm against two armed men who could kill her without consequence. Saw her protecting him without hesitation, without fear showing on her face. Something shifted in his chest. Something he couldn't name. I'll definitely call if I hear anything, Yasmin said. Is there anything else? I'm pretty tired. Sunu's voice dropped lower, more menacing. Ms. Lowe, I'm going to ask you one more time. Is Mr. Austin in this apartment? No, Jasmine replied. And if you want to search it, you're going to need a warrant. Or I'm calling the police. Sunu's laugh was sharp and humorless. The police work for us, sweetheart. You know that. Everyone in this neighborhood knows that. Maybe, Jasmine said, but they still have to pretend they don't. And I'm betting you don't want that kind of attention right now. Not when you're supposed to be helping Mr. Mok run things quietly. The silence that followed was thick with tension. Kwang held his breath, waiting for Sunu to kick in the door, waiting for violence to erupt. Instead, Sunu laughed again. But this time it sounded genuine, almost impressed. Smart girl, he said. I can see why you've lasted 2 years working for that family. Okay, you win tonight. But Ms. Lowe, if I find out you lied to me, if I find out you're protecting him, he let the threat hang. Have a good night, Jasmine said pleasantly, and closed the door. She waited 5 seconds. 10. Then turned to Kwang. We have 90 seconds before they kick it in, she said, already moving. Maybe 2 minutes, if we're lucky. How do you know? Because that's what I'd do. She grabbed Kwang's arm, pulling him toward the window. Fire escape. We go down, then through the basement corridor to the next building. Come on. Kwang's body protested every movement, but adrenaline pushed him forward. Jasmine opened the window. No alarm, no sound except the scrape of old wood on older wood. Cold air rushed in, sharp with the smell of winter and exhaust. She climbed out first, then helped Kwang through. His feet found the metal grating of the fire escape. It swayed slightly under their combined weight, rust flaking off under his hands. Below them, Brooklyn spread out in a patchwork of lights and shadows. From this height, the city looked almost beautiful, almost peaceful. Behind them, in the apartment, the door exploded inward. Go! Jasmine hissed, already descending the ladder. Kwang followed, his hands clumsy on the cold metal rungs. His legs kept threatening to give out. But Jasmine was there, always there, her hand on his back, keeping him balanced. They reached the second-floor landing. Jasmine didn't hesitate. She grabbed the ladder and sent it sliding down to the alley below. The metal shrieked against its tracks. They climbed down fast, Kwang's muscles screaming in protest. His feet hit concrete. Jasmine grabbed his hand and ran. Behind them, Kwang heard Sunu's voice shouting from the window above. There! They're in the alley! But Jasmine was already pulling him through a basement entrance, down a corridor that smelled like mildew and old pipes. She navigated in near darkness with the confidence of someone who'd walked this path before. They emerged 3 blocks away in another alley, different building, different world. Kwang collapsed against a brick wall, gasping. His vision was going gray at the edges. His heart hammered so hard he thought it might break through his ribs. Yasmin pulled out a burner phone from somewhere in her uniform. She dialed a number from memory. "Violet," she said when someone answered. "It's me. I need that favor." A pause. "No, it's worse than that. I need it now." Another pause. 20 minutes. "Okay. Thank you." She ended the call and looked at Kwang. In the dim light from a distant street lamp, her face was both young and ancient, determined and terrified. "Can you walk?" she asked. "Do I have a choice?" "No." Kwang pushed himself off the wall, his legs held. "Barely." "Where are we going?" "To see a friend," Jasmine said. "Someone who can help. Someone who understands what it's like when the system fails you." They walked through the night, 2 fugitives in a city of millions. Behind them, Kwang could hear sirens, could imagine Sunu mobilizing every resource Mok had, could picture Kara's face when she learned her husband was still alive, still fighting, still refusing to die on schedule. "Why Violet?" Kwang managed to ask as they walked. "Why trust her?" Jasmine glanced at him. "Because she's the one who told me what arsenic poisoning looks like," she said quietly. 3 months ago, when I first started noticing your symptoms, when I first suspected something was wrong, I went to her and described what I was seeing. She told me what to look for, what to collect, how to protect myself. "You've been planning this for 3 months?" "I've been preparing for 3 months," Yasmin corrected. "There's a difference. I didn't know when I'd need to act, but I knew I'd need to be ready." They turned onto another street. A shuttered bodega sat in the middle of the block, its security gate pulled down, its windows dark. But Yasmin knocked on the side door. 3 short raps, 2 long. The door opened. A black woman in her 50s stood there. Silver locks pulled back from a face that held both kindness and hard-earned wisdom. Her eyes went to Jasmine first, then to Kwang. Recognition flickered across her features. "You brought me the Mafia man," she said flatly. "I brought you a man who's dying," Jasmine replied. "Will you help him?" Violet stood in the doorway for a long moment, weighing something Kwang couldn't see. Then she stepped aside. "Get inside," she said. "Both of you, before someone sees." They entered and Violet locked the door behind them. 3 locks, a chain, a bar across the frame. She led them through the dark bodega to a back room lit by a battery-powered lamp. Medical supplies covered a folding table, bandages, gauze, bottles of various liquids, a makeshift clinic in the heart of Brooklyn. "Sit," Violet said, pointing Kwang to a chair. He sat. The room swayed around him. Violet pulled on latex gloves and approached him like a general approaching a battlefield. "You're the one who runs the protection rackets in this neighborhood," she said. It wasn't a question. "Yes," Kwang replied. "No point lying. The one who decides which businesses pay and which ones get burned down." "Yes." "The one who flooded these streets with pills that killed 3 teenagers last year." Kwang looked at her. "Yes." Violet's expression didn't change. "I'm going to help you anyway," she said, "not because you deserve it, because she does." She nodded toward Jasmine. "And because every life deserves a chance at redemption, even yours." She picked up a tourniquet and wrapped it around Kwang's arm with practiced efficiency. "Roll up your sleeve. Let's see how badly they poisoned you." As Violet drew blood, Kwang watched Jasmine lean against the wall, her eyes closed, her shoulders finally dropping with exhaustion. She'd saved him. This woman he'd barely noticed. This woman he'd never thanked. This woman who'd risked everything for a man who'd done nothing to earn it. "Arsenic," Violet said after running a rapid test. Her face was grim. "Chronic exposure. Your kidneys are in trouble. Your liver's struggling. Another week of this dosage and you'd be dead." "Can you treat it?" Jasmine asked. Violet hesitated. "I can start chelation therapy, help his body expel the poison, but he needs real medical care, a hospital." "Hospitals aren't safe," Jasmine said. "They'll find him there." "Then he needs to decide," Violet replied, looking at Kwang directly. "Risk death from poison or risk death from whoever's hunting you." Kwang met her gaze. "What do you recommend?" "I recommend you confess your sins, make peace with God, and hope for mercy." Violet prepared an injection. "But since you're probably not going to do that, I recommend you let me give you this. It'll help your body fight the poison. You'll feel worse before you feel better. Much worse. But it might buy you enough time to figure out your next move." "Do it," Kwang said. The needle went in. Cold liquid spread through his veins like ice water. Kwang gritted his teeth against the sensation. "What are you thinking?" Violet asked Jasmine as she worked. "You can't stay on the run forever." "We need proof," Jasmine said. "Medical evidence isn't enough. His wife will say he's paranoid, losing his mind. We need something she can't deny." Kwang sat up straighter, the medication already making him feel simultaneously better and worse. "I have cameras," he said, "hidden ones, in every room of the penthouse." Both women looked at him. "When I took over the organization, I didn't trust anyone," Kwang continued. "So I installed hidden cameras everywhere, even places my family didn't know about. They record to an encrypted drive in my private office." "Behind the bookshelf?" Jasmine asked. Kwang stared at her. "How did you know?" "I clean that office twice a week," she said simply. "I notice things. Like secret panels that don't quite match the rest of the wood grain." Violet finished with the injection and stepped back. "If you've got video of them poisoning you, that's your leverage. That's how you survive this." "We'd have to go back," Yasmin said slowly. "Back to the penthouse." "Into the lion's den," Kwang added. They looked at each other, understanding passing between them without words. "Then we'd better make sure you can walk first," Violet said. "Because from the sound of it, you're about to do something incredibly stupid." Outside, somewhere in the distance, sirens wailed. The hunt was on. And the hunter had become the hunted. But for the first time since stepping into his penthouse that evening, Kwang Austin felt something other than fear. He felt purpose. Kwang spent the next hour in Violet's makeshift clinic, feeling the medication work through his system. True to her word, it got worse before it got better. His stomach cramped, his head pounded, sweat soaked through his shirt despite the cold. But gradually, slowly, his vision cleared, his breathing steadied. The weakness in his legs receded to something manageable. Violet monitored him with the efficiency of someone who'd done this many times before. She asked questions. How long had he been dizzy? When did the nausea start? How many times had Kara made his green juice personally? And recorded his answers in a small notebook. You're lucky, she finally said. If they'd kept the dosage steady for another 2 weeks, your organs would have started failing catastrophically. There'd be no coming back from that. Lucky, Kwang repeated, tasting the irony. My wife tried to kill me, my brother helped her, and my organization's been stolen. Very lucky. You're breathing, Violet replied. That's luckier than a lot of people who cross paths with men like you. She had a point. Jasmine sat in the corner, her eyes closed but her body still tense. Not sleeping, just conserving energy. Kwang watched her. This woman who'd upended her entire life to save his, who'd risked death without hesitation. Why does she trust you? He asked Violet quietly. Violet glanced at Yasmin. Her brother Elvis. He came to my clinic sometimes when he was home on leave. Good kid. Wanted to make a difference. She paused. When he died, Yasmin came to me. Asked if I thought it was really an overdose. I told her the truth. That powerful people don't leave witnesses, and her brother was a witness. Did you encourage her to work for me? No. I told her to run, to leave New York and never look back. Violet's expression hardened. But she said she needed to understand how people like you think, how you operate. So she took the job as your maid. Learned your world from the inside. Kwang absorbed this. She's been studying me. She's been trying to make sense of what killed her brother, Violet corrected. And along the way, she saw you were dying too. She could have let it happen, could have called it justice. Instead, she chose mercy. Violet looked at him directly. Don't make her regret that choice. Before Kwang could respond, Jasmine's eyes snapped open. She crossed to the window in 3 quick steps and lifted the curtain. We've got company, she said quietly. Violet and Kwang joined her. Outside, a black SUV had pulled up across the street. The engine was running, exhaust visible in the cold air. No one got out. They're watching, Violet said. Waiting to see if you're here. How'd they find us? Kwang asked. Same way you find everyone, Jasmine replied. They're asking questions, putting pressure on people. Someone probably saw us and talked. As if to confirm her words, Kwang's attention was drawn to movement near the bodega's front entrance. A teenage kid, maybe 16, was standing on the corner, phone to his ear, eyes on Violet's door. The moment the kid saw them looking, he turned and hurried away. That's Malik's nephew, Violet said, her voice tight with anger. Little Danny. Malik must have sent him to scout. Malik? Kwang recognized the name. The one who runs numbers on Flatbush Avenue? The same. Violet's jaw clenched. He owes money to your organization. Probably got scared when your brother's men came around asking questions. We need to move, Jasmine said. Now. But Violet shook her head. The SUV's watching the front. If you try to leave, they'll see you. You need a distraction. I'll be the distraction, Violet said before either of them could protest. I'll walk out the front, make a scene about them harassing my business. While I've got their attention, you two slip out the back and cut through the alley to the subway. They'll question you, Jasmine said. Maybe worse. Honey, I've been questioned by worse men than these. Violet grabbed a coat and pulled it on. Besides, I'm a pillar of this community. They rough me up. People talk. Your brother's men don't want that kind of attention. Kwang felt something unfamiliar twist in his chest. Why are you helping me? He asked Violet. After everything my organization has done to this neighborhood. Violet looked at him with eyes that had seen too much. I'm not helping you, she said flatly. I'm helping her. She saved your life because she believes people can change. I don't know if you can, but I know she deserves a chance to find out. She moved toward the front door. You've got 3 minutes. Use them. Violet disappeared through the bodega's main room. Moments later, Kwang heard her voice outside, loud and indignant. "Excuse me, you can't park there. This is a business entrance." "Move along, lady," a male voice responded. "This doesn't concern you." "It concerns me when you're blocking my customers." The voices faded as Violet drew the men away from the door, toward the corner. "Now," Jasmine said. They moved quickly through the back room, out into an alley that smelled like rotting vegetables and motor oil. The night air hit Kwang like a slap, sharp and clarifying. His legs held as they ran. The medication was working. Behind them, Kwang heard car doors opening, footsteps. Someone had spotted them. There, in the alley. Jasmine pulled Kwang left, then right, through a maze of passages he couldn't have navigated alone. She knew this neighborhood. Every turn, every shortcut, every escape route. They emerged onto a busier street. People everywhere. Couples walking hand in hand. Groups of friends heading to bars. The normal world. Oblivious to the life and death chase happening in their midst. Jasmine slowed to a brisk walk, pulling Kwang close like they were just another couple out for the evening. But her eyes never stopped moving, scanning faces, watching for threats. The subway entrance appeared ahead like salvation. They descended into the station. The smell of metal and humanity washed over them. A train was pulling in, the R line, heading toward Manhattan. They squeezed through closing doors just as Kwang spotted Sunu's face in the crowd behind them, searching. The doors closed. The train lurched forward. They'd made it. Kwang sagged against a pole, his body reminding him that medication only did so much. Jasmine stood beside him, one hand on the pole, the other resting lightly on his arm, steadying him. "Thank you," Kwang said quietly, the words feeling inadequate. "Don't thank me yet," Jasmine replied. "We still have to get that video. And that means going back to your penthouse, where they're waiting." The train rocked through the tunnel, carrying them toward Manhattan, toward danger, toward the proof they needed. Around them, other passengers scrolled through phones or dozed or argued about New Year's Eve plans. Normal people living normal lives. Kwang watched them and felt the enormous distance between his world and theirs, a world he'd created. A world that was now trying to kill him. "When we get that drive," Kwang said, "what happens to Kara and Mok?" Jasmine looked at him. "What do you want to happen?" "I want them to pay." "Then they'll pay," Jasmine said simply. "But not through violence. Not through your old methods. We do this right. Legal, documented, undeniable. We take that video to people who can use it. We end them without becoming them." Kwang studied her face. "You've thought about this." "I've thought about nothing else for 3 months." The train emerged from the tunnel, Manhattan's lights spreading before them like scattered diamonds. Somewhere up there, in a penthouse that used to be his home, Kara and Mok were waiting. Planning. Assuming he was dead or would be soon. They were wrong, and Kwang Austin was about to show them just how wrong. If you're feeling this story, if your heart is racing wondering whether Kwang and Jasmine survive this night, then hit that like button right now. Comment below, Team Jasmine or Team Kwang. And if you've ever felt invisible like she did, if you've ever had to be the one person standing between someone and destruction, drop a heart in the comments. You're not alone. The subway car was nearly empty by the time they reached their stop in Manhattan. Just them, a woman asleep in the corner, and a couple of college students arguing about whether Die Hard was a Christmas movie. Normal, safe, temporary. They exited into a station Kwang didn't recognize, though he'd lived in this city for 15 years. He'd spent his time in cars with drivers, in buildings with private elevators, in spaces where common people didn't go. Now, he was one of the common people. Anonymous, vulnerable, dependent on a woman who knew how to navigate this world. Jasmine led him up to street level through an exit that emerged in an alley. She checked both directions before stepping out, her movements careful and practiced. "We can't go straight to the penthouse," she said. "It's barely 9 p.m. Kara and Mock will still be there. We need to wait until after midnight, when they go to whatever New Year's party they're pretending to attend. So, what do we do until then? Yasmin pulled out her burner phone and made another call. Violet, it's me. We made it. Yeah, we're okay. Listen, I need one more favor. Can you get us into the penthouse tonight? After midnight? I need someone who knows the security systems, who can get us in without triggering alarms. She listened for a moment, her expression shifting from hopeful to uncertain to determined. You're sure he'll help? Okay. Text me the address. Thank you. For everything. She ended the call and looked at Kwang. We're meeting someone. A man who used to work for your organization. He quit last year. Who? Violet didn't say his name over the phone, just that he knows the penthouse security inside and out, and that he hates your brother. They walked through Manhattan streets transformed by New Year's Eve energy. Restaurants were packed. Bars overflowed onto sidewalks. People wore glittery hats and carried champagne bottles and shouted about resolutions and new beginnings. Kwang watched them and felt hollowed out. 12 hours ago, he'd been one of the city's hidden powers. Now he was a ghost moving through crowds, recognized by no one. Yasmin's hand found his elbow, steadying him. Your color's better, she said. Violet's medication is working. How can you tell? You're not sweating as much. Your breathing's more regular. She glanced at him. I've been watching you struggle for 3 months, Mr. Austin. I know what you look like when the poison's winning. The words hit him strangely. She'd been watching him, caring about his health, noticing details while he barely registered her existence. Kwang, he said. What? Call me Kwang. Not Mr. Austin, not boss. Just Kwang. Jasmine looked at him for a long moment. Okay, Kwang. His name and her voice sounded different, human, real. They turned down a side street and stopped in front of a Korean restaurant, its windows steamed with cooking heat. The sign read, Ari Rang, in both Korean and English. Yasmin led him through the front door. Inside, the space was narrow and packed with tables. The air smelled like grilling meat and garlic and sesame oil. Conversations flowed in Korean and English. A few heads turned when they entered, but most diners were too focused on their food to care. A woman emerged from the kitchen, older, maybe 60, with her hair in a tight bun and an apron stained with work. Her eyes found Yasmin first, then moved to Kwang. Recognition flickered across her face. Fear. Then something harder. Jasmine, the woman said in English tinged with a Korean accent. Violet called. Said you needed help. We do, Mrs. Han. Thank you for seeing us. Mrs. Han's gaze stayed on Kwang. You're the reason my son quit working for your family. You're the reason he has nightmares. I'm sorry, Kwang said, meaning it. Sorry doesn't fix nightmares. Mrs. Han turned and walked toward the back of the restaurant. But Violet says you're trying to do something right for once. So come. My son is waiting. They followed her through the kitchen, past steaming pots and sizzling grills, to a small office in the back. A young man sat there, maybe 25, lean and tense. He looked up when they entered, and his face went pale. Boss? He said automatically, then stopped himself. I mean, Mr. Austin. You know me? Kwang asked. I worked in your security detail, the young man said. 2 years. Until I couldn't anymore. Why did you leave? The young man looked at his mother, then back at Kwang. Because I saw what happens to people who say no to you. I saw what your brother did to that kid who tried to quit the drug cruise. I saw... He stopped, swallowing hard. I saw things I couldn't live with. What's your name? Kwang asked. Jin. Han Jin. Jin, I need your help. Kwang kept his voice level. I need to get into my penthouse tonight without setting off alarms, without Kara and Mock knowing I'm there. Jin's expression shifted from fear to confusion. Why would you need help getting into your own home? Yasmin stepped forward. Because his wife and brother are trying to kill him. They've been poisoning him for months. We need to retrieve evidence from his office, security footage that proves what they've done. Jin looked between them, processing. You're serious? Completely, Jasmine said. If I help you, your brother will kill me, Jin said flatly. My brother's not going to be in a position to kill anyone, Kwang replied. Not after tonight. Jin studied him for a long moment. Then he stood and pulled a laptop from a desk drawer. Show me the penthouse layout. Tell me which cameras cover what. I'll tell you how to get in and out without being seen. They spent the next hour planning. Jin pulled up schematics of the security system, the one he'd helped install 18 months ago. He showed them the blind spots, the camera angles, the places where someone could move without being recorded. The service corridors are your best bet, Jin said. They have cameras, but they're on a different system, one that doesn't automatically alert to movement after midnight. The assumption is, only staff use those corridors, and staff aren't there overnight. I can navigate the service corridors, Yasmin said. I know them better than the main hallways. Jin nodded. Good. The office is trickier. There's a camera in the hallway outside, but if you go in through the private bathroom that connects to the master bedroom, you can avoid it entirely. The bathroom connects to my office? Kwang asked. Through a hidden door behind the towel cabinet, Jin confirmed. I thought you knew. Kwang shook his head. Another detail of his own home he'd never noticed. Another way he'd been blind. Jin continued mapping out the route, showing them timing, showing them how to disable specific cameras if needed. He worked with the intensity of someone who wanted this over with, who wanted to help, and then never see Kwang Austin again. One more thing, Jin said. Your brother changed the security protocols last week. New codes, new patterns. I heard about it through friends still in the organization. He's preparing for something. Preparing to take over, Kwang said quietly. Yeah. Jin looked uncomfortable. If you go in there tonight and they catch you, they won't, Jasmine said firmly. Jin's eyes moved to her, and something like respect crossed his face. You're the maid everyone talks about, the one who sees everything. I see enough. Then you see that this is dangerous, that even with my help, you might not make it out. We know, Jasmine replied, but we're going anyway. Jin nodded slowly. He pulled a small device from his pocket, a keycard programmer. This can override the main door lock. One-time use. After that, it's dead and untraceable. He handed it to Yasmin. The code for the service elevator is still 4729. Mach hasn't changed it because most people don't even know it exists. Thank you, Jasmine said. Jin looked at Kwang. I hope you know what you're doing. I hope this is worth it. It's worth it, Kwang replied. And Jin, when this is over, if you want your job back? I don't want anything from you, Jin interrupted. I'm helping because Violet asked, and because my mother raised me to do the right thing. But I don't want to be part of your world anymore. I just want to live without looking over my shoulder. Kwang absorbed the words. Fair enough. They left through the restaurant's back exit. Outside, the temperature had dropped further. Kwang's breath misted in the air. Somewhere in the distance, fireworks burst prematurely, people too excited to wait for midnight. What time is it? Kwang asked. Jasmine checked her phone. 10:45. We have an hour and 15 minutes before midnight, before we can move. They found a coffee shop still open and sat in the back corner with cups of black coffee neither of them drank. They just needed a place to wait. A place to think. Are you scared? Kwang asked. Terrified, Jasmine admitted. But fear doesn't mean we stop. It just means we're smart about what comes next. Kwang studied her across the small table. Why are you so calm? I'm not calm, I'm focused. There's a difference. Jasmine wrapped her hands around her cup. When Elvis died, I spent 6 months being angry, furious. I wanted revenge. I wanted everyone who'd hurt him to suffer. She paused. But anger without direction just burns you from the inside. So I learned to channel it, to focus it into something useful. And helping me is useful? Stopping them is useful, Jasmine corrected. You just happen to be part of that equation. Around them, the coffee shop buzzed with New Year's energy, young couples making promises, old friends catching up, life continuing in its messy, beautiful way. Kwang thought about his penthouse, cold and perfect and empty of real life. He thought about the years he'd spent building power and gathering wealth. He thought about all the things he'd sacrificed for control. And he realized he couldn't remember a single moment of joy. If we survive this, he said quietly, I want to change. I want to be different. Jasmine looked at him carefully. People say that a lot, especially when they're facing death. I know, but I mean it. Then prove it, Jasmine said, not with words, with actions, with choices that matter. Midnight approached. Outside, the crowds grew thicker. The noise grew louder. The city prepared to explode with celebration. But Kwang and Jasmine sat in silence, preparing for something else entirely. Preparing to walk back into the place where death had been waiting. Preparing to steal back the truth. At 12:03 a.m., while Manhattan erupted with celebration, Kwang and Jasmine approached the penthouse building. Fireworks painted the sky in cascades of gold and silver. People screamed with joy. Champagne corks popped. The city roared with the promise of new beginnings. Perfect cover for breaking into a crime lord's home. They'd changed clothes in a 24-hour drugstore bathroom. Jasmine wore dark jeans and a black jacket, her hair pulled back tight. Kwang wore similar clothing, borrowed from Jin's mother's restaurant stock. Nothing that would catch light or make sound. The building rose before them, glass and steel and arrogance. Kwang had lived here for 5 years. Now it looked like a fortress. Service entrance, Yasmin said, leading him around to the side. No doorman here, no cameras with facial recognition, just a keycard reader that Jin's device was supposed to trick. Jasmine pressed the card to the reader. For a long moment, nothing happened. Then the light flashed green. The lock clicked. They were in. The service corridors were exactly as Jasmine described. Narrow, functional, invisible to the people who lived above. They climbed stairs instead of taking the elevator, moving slowly, listening at each landing. The building felt different at night. Empty. Haunted by the ghosts of all the people who'd served here, worked here, remained unseen here. They reached the penthouse level. The service door opened onto a small hallway that connected to the kitchen. Jasmine checked through the narrow window first, making sure the main space was empty. Dark. Silent. Kara and Mok went to Chin Young's party. Jasmine whispered. They'll be gone for hours, but there might be guards. They moved through the kitchen, through Yasmin's domain, where she'd spent 2 years cleaning up after people who never thanked her. Where she'd watched Kara prepare poison and collected evidence and made a choice. The penthouse stretched before them, transformed by darkness into something unfamiliar. Kwang knew these rooms, but seeing them like this, silent, empty, waiting, made them strange. Jasmine led him toward the master bedroom, but Kwang stopped. My office is the other direction. We're going through the bathroom, Jasmine reminded him. The hidden door Jin told us about. Less chance of triggering cameras. They entered the master bedroom. Kwang's eyes went immediately to the bed he'd shared with Kara for 5 years. The bed where she'd slept beside him while poisoning him. The bed that now felt contaminated by betrayal. Photos on the nightstand showed them smiling. Happy. A complete lie captured in silver frames. Don't look, Jasmine said softly. It only makes it worse. They moved into the bathroom. All marble and gold fixtures and obscene luxury. Jasmine went to the towel cabinet and felt along the back panel until something clicked. A section of the wall swung inward, revealing a narrow passage. I found this 2 months ago, Jasmine admitted. I thought it was just for show. Didn't realize it connected to your office. They squeezed through the passage, Kwang moving carefully to avoid making noise. On the other side, they emerged into his private office. Kwang's breath caught. The room looked exactly as he'd left it. Mahogany desk polished to a mirror shine, leather chairs positioned for intimidation, floor-to-ceiling windows overlooking the city. His city, or so he'd thought. His wedding photo sat prominently on the desk, Kara's smile frozen in perpetual devotion. He wanted to throw it through the window. Instead, he moved to the bookshelf. His hands found the hidden panel Jin had mentioned, the one Yasmin had noticed with her careful eyes. He pressed, and it clicked open. Inside the hidden compartment sat the encrypted drive. Still there, untouched. Months of security footage from every corner of the penthouse. Kwang pulled it free, the small device weighing almost nothing. But it contained everything: proof, evidence, justice. A sound froze them both, the office door opening. Kwang and Jasmine dove behind the heavy curtains that framed the window, pressing themselves flat against the glass. Through the fabric, Kwang could see a slice of the room. Kara entered, phone pressed to her ear. "No, Chin Young, we're handling it," she said, her voice carrying that particular tone she used for business. "Kwang's probably dead in an alley somewhere by now. The poison should have finished him by evening at the latest." Kwang felt Jasmine's hand find his, squeezing hard. A warning. A promise. Kara continued. "Yes. Once it's confirmed, we can discuss territory transfers. Mok has the maps ready. Everything Kwang controlled can be yours for the right price." She paused, listening. "What do you mean you saw someone matching his description?" Kara's voice sharpened. "Where? When?" Another pause. "That's impossible. The dosage I gave him this morning should have—" "Fine. Yes. We'll come to your compound." "Now?" "All right, give us 20 minutes." Kara ended the call. She stood in the center of the office for a moment, her face twisted with worry. Then her eyes fell on the bookshelf, on the open panel, on the empty compartment where the drive had been. Her face drained of color. "No," she whispered. "No, no, no." She lunged for the desk, yanking open drawers, searching frantically. Then she froze, her eyes finding the curtain where Kwang and Jasmine hid. For a split second, their eyes met through the fabric. Recognition, horror, understanding. "You're dead," Kara whispered. "Not yet," Kwang said, stepping out from behind the curtain. Kara's hand moved toward the desk drawer. Kwang knew she kept a gun there, a small revolver she thought he didn't know about. But Jasmine was faster. She crossed the space in 3 quick steps and slammed the drawer shut, trapping Kara's fingers. Kara yelped in pain and rage. "You, the maid, you did this." "I saved him," Jasmine said calmly, "which is more than you ever did." "Do you have any idea what you've done?" Kara's voice rose. "Do you know what Kwang is? What he's done? The people he's hurt? The lives he's destroyed?" "I know exactly what he is," Jasmine replied, "and I still chose to save him, because unlike you, I don't kill people for money." Kara's laugh was sharp, bitter. "You think this is about money? You think that's all this is?" "It's always about money," Kwang said, his voice cold. "Money and power. That's all you ever cared about." "I cared about survival," Kara shouted. "I cared about not spending the rest of my life wondering when you'd end up dead and leave me with nothing. Do you know what it's like being married to a monster? Never knowing if today's the day he doesn't come home? Living in constant fear? So you decided to kill me first," Kwang said. "I decided to control my own fate." Kara's eyes were wild now, and Mok understood that. Mok actually saw me as a person, not just a possession. "Mok saw an opportunity," Kwang corrected. "And you were stupid enough to believe it was love." Footsteps pounded in the hallway outside, heavy, multiple people. "They're here," Jasmine said. Kara screamed, "Help! He's here!" "Kwang is—" Jasmine's hand covered Kara's mouth. Kwang grabbed his wife's arms, pinning them behind her back. "The bathroom," Jasmine said. "Now." They dragged Kara toward the hidden passage, but the office door burst open. Mock appeared with 3 men behind him, all armed, all ready. Mock's eyes found Kwang and widened. "You're supposed to be dead." "I get that a lot tonight," Kwang replied. He released Kara and pushed her toward Mock. She stumbled, falling into her lover's arms. Kwang used the moment of confusion to pull Jasmine toward the window. "What are you doing?" Jasmine hissed. "Something stupid," Kwang replied. He grabbed a heavy paperweight from the desk and hurled it at the window. The glass spiderwebbed but didn't break. Fire escape. Kwang had installed one outside his office years ago, hidden behind the curtains. He kicked the weakened glass. Once. Twice. It shattered. Cold air rushed in. Fireworks still burst outside, covering the sound of breaking glass with celebration. "Stop them!" Mock shouted. But Kwang and Jasmine were already climbing through the window, out onto the fire escape. They descended fast, the metal shaking under their weight. Behind them, Mock appeared at the window, gun drawn. A shot rang out. The bullet sparked off metal inches from Kwang's head. "Go!" he shouted at Jasmine. They dropped to the next landing, then the next. 4 stories down to the alley below. Jasmine landed first, her knees buckling but holding. Kwang came down hard, his already weakened body protesting, but adrenaline pushed him forward. They ran into the New Year's night, into crowds of celebrating people who had no idea they'd just witnessed an escape. Behind them, Mock's voice echoed down the fire escape. "Find them! I want them dead before sunrise." But Kwang and Jasmine were already disappearing into the city, the encrypted drive secure in Kwang's jacket pocket. They had the evidence. Now they just had to survive long enough to use it. Dawn broke over Brooklyn cold and merciless. Kwang and Jasmine had spent the night moving, never staying in one place for more than an hour. They'd ridden subways to nowhere, walked through neighborhoods that never slept, used Yasmin's knowledge of the city's hidden spaces to stay invisible. Now they sat in Violet's back room again, exhausted and wired, watching the footage on a borrowed laptop. The videos were worse than Kwang expected. Kara in the kitchen, measuring white powder into his green juice with the precision of someone who'd done it many times. Mock watching, coaching, encouraging. Close-ups of their hands intertwined, their whispered conversations about dosage and timing. "Another week," Kara said on the video. "Maybe 2. Then it'll look like natural organ failure. No one will question it." Mock kissed her neck. "And then we take everything, his territories, his money, his organization, his life," Kara added, smiling. The footage continued. Days of it, weeks, a complete record of premeditated murder. But it was the next video that made Kwang's blood run cold. Kara and Mock in his bedroom, Kwang's bedroom, discussing the future, discussing what they'd do with his empire, discussing forging his will to leave everything to Kara. "What about Taeyang?" Mock asked on the video. "Will he follow us?" "He's already ours," Kara replied. "I paid him well enough. He'll announce your succession and deal with anyone who objects." "And if Kwang's other lieutenants refuse? Then they join him." Kara's voice was cold, clinical. "Dead men don't cause problems." Jasmine stopped the video. The room fell silent. "This destroys them," she finally said. "It's not enough," Kwang replied, his voice hollow. Jasmine looked at him sharply. "What do you mean it's not enough? This is everything. Murder conspiracy, fraud, organization takeover. This puts them in prison for life." "They're not in New York anymore," Kwang said. "By now they've run to Chin Young, and Chin Young won't just protect them. He'll use this situation to start a war for my territories." He was right. Kwang could see it unfolding like a chess game. Chin Young would claim Kwang was the aggressor, that Kara and Mock sought protection from an abusive husband and brother. The other gangs would pick sides. Blood would flow. "So, what do we do?" Jasmine asked. Before Kwang could answer, his burner phone rang. Unknown number. He almost didn't answer. But something made him press accept. "Boss?" Taeyang's voice came through, strained and scared. "You've got nerve calling me," Kwang said coldly. "I know. I know how it looks. But I didn't betray you. Your brother threatened my family. My daughter, boss. My 8-year-old daughter. He showed me photos of her at school, at the playground. He told me exactly what would happen to her if I didn't cooperate." Kwang felt his anger shift, not disappearing but recalibrating. "Why should I believe you?" "Because I've been feeding your brother false information for 3 weeks," Taeyang said quickly. "Because I've been stalling his takeover plans. Because I'm calling you now to warn you. Chin Young is hosting a gathering tonight. He wants to present Kara and Mok as your successors, as the new leadership of your organization." "Let him," Kwang said. "You don't understand. It's a trap. Chin Young wants you to show up. He has snipers positioned. The moment you appear, you're dead. He'll claim self-defense, that you attacked first." Kwang processed this. "How many of my people are still loyal?" "Maybe 30%, Taeyang admitted. "The rest are scared or bought or both. But the ones who are still with you, they're ready to move if you give the order." "No orders," Kwang said. "Not yet. But I need you to be at Chin Young's gathering tonight. As many of our people as you can gather. Tell them to be ready but to do nothing until I signal." "What are you planning?" "To give Chin Young the show he wants," Kwang replied. "Just not the ending he expects." He hung up and looked at Jasmine. She was watching him with those careful, intelligent eyes. "You're going to walk into a trap," she said. "We're going to walk into a trap," Kwang corrected. "Together. That's suicide." "Maybe, but it's also the only way to end this. Chin Young wants a public confrontation. Let's give him one, but on our terms." Jasmine was quiet for a long moment. Then she said, "Explain your plan." Kwang leaned forward. For the first time in days, his mind felt clear. The poison was leaving his system. His strategic instincts were returning. He'd built an empire through careful calculation. Now he'd use those same skills to tear down the people trying to steal it. "Chin Young thinks I'm weak," Kwang said. "Poisoned, desperate, alone. He thinks I'll either hide or attack foolishly. We do neither. We walk in with evidence, with witnesses, with a plan. Evidence can disappear," Jasmine pointed out. "Not if it's already been sent to multiple sources." Kwang turned to Violet, who'd been listening silently. "Can you copy this footage? Encrypt it and send it to federal prosecutors," Jasmine finished. "Not local police. They're bought. But the feds have been looking for a way into Chin Young's organization for years. This gives them leverage on everyone." "They'll need time to act," Violet said. "At least a few hours." "Then we buy them time," Kwang said. "We go to Chin Young's gathering. We show the footage publicly. We force his hand in front of witnesses he can't silence." "The neutral gang leaders," Jasmine realized. "He's gathering them to legitimize the transfer of power. If you expose Kara and Mok in front of them, Chin Young can't just kill you without starting a war he's not ready for." "Exactly." They spent the next 4 hours preparing. Violet copied the footage to multiple drives and sent them through encrypted channels to federal prosecutors, the FBI's organized crime division, and a journalist she trusted. Jin, reluctant but committed, provided updated security layouts for Chin Young's compound in Queens. He showed them entry points, guard rotations, camera blind spots. "This is still insane," Jin said. "Even with all this prep, you're walking into a building full of armed men who want you dead." "I know," Kwang replied, "but sometimes the only way out is through." As evening approached, Kwang found himself alone with Jasmine in Violet's back room. She was checking the backup drive, making sure the footage was intact. "Jasmine," Kwang said quietly. She looked up. "If this goes wrong, if I don't make it out?" "Don't," Jasmine interrupted. "Don't do the goodbye speech. We're both walking out, or neither of us is." "You don't have to come," Kwang insisted. "You've already done more than anyone had a right to ask. You could walk away right now. Disappear. Start over somewhere safe." Jasmine stood and crossed to where he sat. She looked down at him with those eyes that had seen everything, noticed everything, understood everything. 3 months ago, I watched you struggle with simple things, she said. Getting up from chairs, climbing stairs. You'd stop halfway through conversations because you couldn't remember words. I watched you dying and not knowing why. She paused. I could have walked away then, could have told myself it wasn't my problem, but I didn't. Because I knew that even monsters deserve a chance at redemption if they're willing to take it. And you think I'm willing? I think you're here, Jasmine replied. I think you're choosing truth over power, justice over revenge. That's a start. She handed him the backup drive. Their fingers touched briefly, and Kwang felt something shift between them. Something that had been building since the moment she dragged him into that closet and saved his life. When this is over, he said, I want to know you. Really know you. Not as my employee, not as the person who saved me, just as Yasmin. Her expression softened. Then survive tonight, and we'll see what happens. Outside, the sun was setting on New Year's Day. The city lights were beginning to glow. Somewhere in Queens, Chin Young was preparing for a gathering that would reshape the city's underworld, and Kwang Austin was preparing to either reclaim his empire or die trying. But for the first time in his life, he wasn't doing it alone. Drop in the comments if this story is hitting you in the feels right now. Tell me, would you have walked into that trap? Would you have risked everything for the truth? Comment your thoughts below, because this is where everything changes. Chin Young's compound in Queens sat behind 12-foot walls topped with cameras and razor wire. To the outside world, it looked like a luxury estate. To people who knew better, it was a fortress. Cars lined the circular drive, expensive vehicles belonging to gang leaders from across the 5 boroughs. The men who controlled New York's criminal underworld gathered under the pretense of resolving the Austin situation. Kwang and Jasmine approached through the service entrance, just as they'd done at the penthouse. Taeyang had arranged it. A catering van with legitimate credentials, real staff who'd been paid to look the other way. Stay close, Jasmine whispered as they moved through the industrial kitchen. Steam rose from massive pots. Chefs barked orders in multiple languages. No one looked twice at 2 more people in black uniforms carrying trays. The main hall was visible through service windows. Kwang caught glimpses of the gathering, men in expensive suits, seated around a massive table. Kara and Mok sat at Chin Young's right hand, dressed like royalty, playing the role of grieving family members forced to seek protection. Chin Young himself sat at the head of the table, mid-50s with silver hair and eyes that had seen too much death to be surprised by it anymore. He was speaking, his voice carrying the weight of authority. Kwang Austin is finished, Chin Young said. His mind is gone. His organization in chaos. These 2, he gestured at Kara and Mok, will bring stability. Under my guidance, of course. Of course, someone muttered, not quite hiding their skepticism. Chin Young continued, any objections will be handled diplomatically, but make no mistake, Austin's territories are now open for negotiation. In the kitchen, Kwang pulled out his phone. The footage was already uploaded, ready to send. He looked at Jasmine. Last chance to walk away, he said. Stop asking me that, she replied. Taeyang appeared in the doorway, his face tight with stress. They're expecting you to attack from the outside. Snipers are positioned on the roof. If you try to come through the front, you're dead before you clear the door. Good thing we're already inside, Kwang said. He sent the video files simultaneously to every phone in the main hall, watched the screens light up in pockets and on the table. Then he walked through the kitchen door into the hall. The room went silent in waves, starting from where he entered and rippling outward. Conversations died, heads turned. Someone dropped a glass. Kara's face drained of all color. Mok stood abruptly, his hand moving toward his jacket. Chin Young's expression shifted from surprise to calculation in seconds. Sit down, Kwang commanded, and his voice still carried the weight that had made him king. All of you, watch your phones. The gang leaders looked down as the video played. Kara measuring poison, Mock coaching her. Their whispered conversations about murder and money, their affair captured in high definition. Kwang let it play for 30 seconds, long enough for the message to be clear. Then he spoke again. My wife and my brother tried to kill me for money and power, he said, addressing the entire room. When they failed, they ran to Chin Young, offering him my territories in exchange for protection. Chin Young stood slowly. That's a serious accusation, Austin. It's on video, Kwang replied. Every conversation, every dose of poison, every plan to carve up my organization. Video can be faked, Chin Young said, but his voice lacked conviction. Not video that's already in the hands of the FBI, Taeyang said, stepping forward. Not video that's been authenticated and time-stamped. Not video that's accompanied by physical evidence collected over 3 months. One of the neutral gang leaders, a man named DeMarco who controlled the docks, spoke up. If what Austin says is true, this is a family matter. Not grounds for reorganizing territories. Exactly. Another voice chimed in, a woman named Reiko who ran gambling operations. We came here expecting a legitimate succession. This is just a domestic dispute. Chin Young's jaw tightened. Austin is poisoned, paranoid. I've been examined by medical professionals, Kwang interrupted. The arsenic in my blood matches the poison in samples collected from my kitchen. Samples that have my wife's fingerprints on them. Kara finally found her voice. This is insane. He's making this up. Then explain the video, Jasmine said, stepping forward. Every eye in the room turned to her. Explain why your fingerprints are on vials of poison. Explain why you're on camera discussing his death in detail. Who the hell are you? Chin Young demanded. I'm the maid who saved his life, Jasmine said clearly. I'm the one who watched, who collected evidence, who pulled him out when you all wanted him dead. Tension crackled through the room. Hands moved toward weapons. Kwang could feel the violence building, ready to explode. Then Jasmine raised her voice. Or everyone here can walk away. Mr. Austin has his evidence. His wife and brother-in-law are exposed. You can all pretend this was just mediation. Everyone saves face. No war. No blood. The room considered this. Gang politics operated on reputation and deniability. If they could avoid open conflict while maintaining their positions, most would take that option. DeMarco spoke first. The girl makes sense. This is family business. Let Austin clean his house. Reiko nodded. We didn't come here to start a war. We came for a peaceful transition. If there's no legitimate transition, she left the implications hanging. Chin Young's eyes narrowed. His hand moved to his weapon. The room held its breath. Then Mock, desperate and cornered, made the decision that sealed their fate. He pulled a gun and aimed it at Kwang. You humiliated us, Mock shouted, his voice breaking. You treated us like we were nothing, like... The shot rang out before he could finish. But Jasmine had moved, pulling Kwang aside with the strength of desperation. The bullet sparked off metal behind them. Chaos erupted. Taeyang's men emerged from positions around the hall, weapons drawn. Chin Young's guards responded. The neutral gang leaders dove for cover, but no one was shooting at each other. Everyone's guns were pointed at Mock and Kara. Lower the weapon, Chin Young said to Mock, his voice deadly calm. You just started a war in my house, without my permission. Mock's hand shook. He looked around wildly, realizing his mistake too late. I said lower it, Chin Young repeated. Mock dropped the gun. His whole body seemed to collapse inward. Chin Young's guards moved in, grabbing both Mock and Kara, not gently. Mr. Wasey. Austin, Chin Young said, his voice tight with controlled fury. You've made your point. Take your people and leave. This matter is... resolved. What about them? Kwang asked, gesturing to Kara and Mock. They endangered everyone in this room with their stupidity, Chin Young replied. They'll face consequences. Not from you. From me. Kwang understood. Chin Young couldn't let anyone think they could bring violence into his home unpunished. His reputation depended on it. The FBI will find them eventually, Chin Young finished. But first, they'll answer to me for this embarrassment. It wasn't justice. Not really. But it was something. Kwang looked at Kara, his wife of 5 years. She stared back at him with eyes full of hate and fear and something else. Regret, maybe. I loved you once, Kwang said quietly. Or I thought I did. I thought I could build something real while living in violence. I was wrong. Kwang, Kara started. Don't, he interrupted. Don't apologize. Don't explain. Just live with what you chose. He turned to Jasmine. Let's go. They walked through the compound, past guards who parted for them, past gang leaders who nodded with new respect. They climbed into the catering van and Taeyang drove them away from the fortress. No one stopped them. No one fired shots. Because Kwang Austin had done what no one expected. He'd walked into a trap and turned it into a stage. He'd exposed the truth in front of witnesses who couldn't be silenced. He'd survived. But more than that, he'd changed the game. In the van, Yasmin's hand found his. Their fingers intertwined, and neither of them let go. Is it over? She asked. Almost, Kwang replied. One more thing to do. 3 days passed. 3 days of federal agents and depositions and video analysis. 3 days of watching Kwang's organization restructure around the truth. Kara and Mok were in federal custody. Chin Young had turned them over personally, washing his hands of the mess. They'd face charges for attempted murder, conspiracy, fraud. Years in prison, possibly decades. The poison was slowly leaving Kwang's system. Violet had connected him with a real doctor, one who wasn't connected to his organization. The chelation therapy was working. His strength was returning. But so was something else. Clarity about who he'd been and who he wanted to become. Now Kwang stood in his penthouse for what he knew would be the last time. Taeyang was beside him, looking uncomfortable. Boss, the organization is ready for your orders, Taeyang said. We've rebuilt security, expelled the infiltrators. We can start expanding territories again, get back to normal operations. No, Kwang said quietly. Taeyang blinked. Boss? I'm stepping back, Kwang announced. You'll run operations, but I want us moving legitimate. No more trafficking. No more protection rackets on small businesses. We go clean. Slowly, carefully, but we go clean. Why? Taeyang looked genuinely confused. Kwang stared out at the city. His city, or so he'd always thought. Because I was dying in the middle of everything I built, and I didn't even notice. The person who saved me was someone I treated like furniture. He turned to face Taeyang. That can't be who I am anymore. What will you do? I don't know yet, Kwang admitted. But I know what I won't do. I won't build power on fear. I won't ignore the people who make my life possible. I won't treat human beings like property. Taeyang absorbed this. The men won't understand. Then help them understand. Or replace them with people who will. Kwang's voice was firm. This is not negotiable. I'm done being the monster everyone expects. He left Taeyang standing in the penthouse and walked out, taking only what he could carry, a photo of his parents, some clothes, his father's watch retrieved from the construction site. The elevator took him down for the last time. The doorman nodded respectfully, not understanding that this was goodbye. Kwang's car sat waiting. But he walked past it, past the luxury vehicles, past the symbols of everything he'd been. He took the subway to Brooklyn, to Brownsville, to the weathered apartment building where Yasmin lived. He found her outside, bringing in groceries. She saw him and stopped, bags balanced in her arms. Mr. Austin, she said, then corrected herself. Kwang. Kwang, he confirmed. Just Kwang. Jasmine set down her groceries. What are you doing here? I came to apologize, he said. For 2 years, you worked in my home. I never asked about your life, never thanked you, never saw you. He stepped closer. You saved me when you had every reason to let me die. You're the bravest person I've ever met. Jasmine's eyes glistened. I did what was right. I know, Kwang said. And I want to spend the rest of my life learning how to do the same. He reached into his pocket and produced a small box. Jasmine's breath caught. Kwang, you don't have to. I'm not doing this because I have to, he interrupted. I'm doing it because for the first time in my life, I'm choosing something real over something powerful. He opened the box. Inside was a simple ring, not ostentatious, not expensive by his old standards, just beautiful in its simplicity. Jasmine Lo, will you marry me? Kwang asked. Not because you work for me, not because I have anything you need, but because I love you. Because I want to build a life where we see each other every day, where I never stop seeing you. Tears streamed down Yasmin's face. You were dying 3 days ago, and you gave me a reason to live, Kwang said. So what do you say? Jasmine looked at the ring, at this man who'd been a monster and chose to become human, at the choice before her, the easy answer or the complicated truth. She thought of her brother Elvis, of justice and mercy, of second chances and new beginnings. Yes, she whispered, but I'm keeping my apartment. Kwang laughed, a real, unguarded sound that surprised them both. Deal. He slipped the ring on her finger. It fit perfectly, and they stood together on a Brooklyn sidewalk while the city moved around them. Two people who'd found each other in the darkest moment and chose light. Above them, a plane traced a line across the winter sky. Music drifted from open windows. Life continued in its messy, beautiful, complicated way. What happens now? Jasmine asked. I don't know, Kwang admitted, but we figure it out together. She leaned her head against his shoulder. He wrapped his arm around her waist, and for the first time in longer than he could remember, Kwang Austin felt peace. Not the peace of power, not the peace of control, the peace of being seen, of being known, of being loved not for what he could provide, but for who he was choosing to become. 3 months ago, he'd been dying in a penthouse surrounded by luxury and lies. Today, he stood on a cracked sidewalk in Brownsville, alive and awake and real. The empire was behind him. The future was uncertain. But Yasmin's hand was in his, and that was enough. More than enough. It was everything. This story is about more than betrayal and survival. It's about the moment we realize that everything we've built means nothing if we've lost our humanity in the process. Kwang Austin had an empire, but he was dying. Not just